Greetings from Fleetwood, by the way. My name is Dave, and these bands are flying all over the place already. Hello at home, if you're watching at home, or if you're watching on catch up, it's great to speak to you also. Like I say, my name is Dave. I've been with CAT 15 years. In fact, it was actually quite funny watching that video. I've seen that video from John for many, many times over the years. And he says it's amazing CAT's gone where it was. But if you look at my screen, it says Christains Against Poverty, which is quite funny. Let's get it out of the way before. I came here the other day and Dorothy, is she here or the other one? And she says, do you know what? You just look like Boris Johnson. No, I'm not going to do that. So thanks for reading the passage. That's great. Thanks for reading that passage. We're going to have a quick look at it. When sort of Chris asked me to go over this and sort of talk about this passage, there was lots of things that sort of went through my mind. And lots of ingredients here. If you look at it, if I had to do it very quickly, it's if you go from verse 30, just a little bit before, there's a little couple of bits before, it talks about the gospel. So you've got the gospel, then you've got silence, then you've got an argument, then you've got silence, then you've got positive teaching with little ones, then you've got a point of order in the committee on club rules, and then you've got a warning and teaching with little ones, and finally the kingdom of God and hell. And it's quite a lot of ingredients in there to actually sort of think about. But I don't know about you, but my first thoughts about that in respect to the disciples' reaction, I don't know where it took me back to school. And when I was at school, I was a bit of a lad, and I used to mess about in class. That might come as a major surprise to everybody apart from Sheila, who knows me very well. But I remember messing about in class. And sort of the teacher would talk about something. And I've done it sort of lately as well in lectures and meetings when I've switched off. But they'll get to a point where they'll say a sentence, something like, well, do you understand that? And especially at school, I'd say, yeah. And in my heart, I'm thinking, oh, please, sir, don't pick me, because I haven't a clue of what you've just said. I haven't a clue what you're talking about. Have you ever been in, Anzo, anybody been in that situation? Come on, be honest. Yeah, of course, we've all been there, where you've not listened to it or you don't understand what's going on. Now, I'm part of the church plan. Now, we have the big church, which is what we call the mothership, but we're in a sort of conurbation, in a community where we meet in various houses for about 3 weeks. And then the first Sunday of every month, we come into the one building in our community, which is available, and that's our local pub. So the pub lets us have the room for the morning, and it's great, and it's brilliant. But the reason we did this sort of stuff is so that we can explain some of the mysteries of what goes on in this book. And it's really interesting because some of the guys will have no problem at all in shouting up if they don't understand. So they'll think, oh, we say that again, I didn't understand it. Or, what did, I don't understand, what does that mean? What does it mean? And we've got some real colourful characters with us. And they'll say something like, why did he do that? He's off his head. And the other week was a classic. And she said, I wrote it down, it was great. And she said, I can sometimes do that because I know it's right. But you know what? Jesus proper does my head in, sometimes. Because he does. Because he challenges so much. And the thing is, it's okay not to understand. It's okay. But don't leave it there. Don't leave it there. So here is Jesus with his missional community of the disciples. He's there with this missional community. And he's wanting some quiet time because there are some things they just don't get. They don't get them. And there's some stuff in chapter 8. If you look back from chapter 8, Jesus had talked to the crowd, he talked to them about the cross, he talked to them about dying in 3 days, and they still didn't get it then. And if you look earlier in this chapter, it's the chapter, beginning of it, it's the transfiguration. Basically, Jesus and a few of his mates go up the mountain, and he has an encounter with God, and his clothes look like bleached white clothes. Bit of an advert for Daz, something like that. Very amazing sort of spectacle. And the cloud comes over, and God said, you listen to my boy, this is my son, and do what he tells you to do. And you've got the three lads who are there. They have seen this. And on the way down, Jesus says this to them. He says, don't tell anybody about this circumstance until after 3 days, when the Son of Man rises again. And you can imagine the scene as they're going down and say, okay, Jesus, what's he talking about? He's off his head. But the good news is that in 3 days, and it deals with being at peace with each other, but in 3 days is telling them this is the gospel. The good news that Jesus will die, but in 3 days he will rise again. And Romans 10:9 said this, if you would declare with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, or the boss of my life, or the driving force of my life, if you will confess that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, then you will be saved. Now, I do a church, the guy who's the pastor in our church is a guy called Rob. And if, Rob, you ever watch this, I apologize now, but I'm going to say it anyway. But his testimony, his story about making the leap of faith, he did at college. And he went to college, and he went to some Christian union or something that was in college. And he understood a lot of this about becoming a Christian, about asking God into his life, about believing in his heart, and about confessing with, breaking the place, about confessing with his mouth. And he did that, he made that stage, and he went back into his class, into his lecture, and he announced to everybody, he said, I'm saved, I've got saved, I'm saved, I'm saved. Now, if you was in that class, let me ask you, you can answer me. If I said that I came in and you were in my class, what's the question that you would ask me? Anybody? Exactly, absolutely, and that's exactly what it is. What are you being saved for? Do you know what he said? I have no idea. He said, but something's happened, but I have no idea. And it's just so funny. But in this, we have an idea at the end what we're saved from. He leaves us in no doubt why he died and gives us a graphic description of what we're saved from. In fact, I actually read it in various versions, but in the version that we just read, it's quite graphic, because after verses 44, 46, and 48, it says this, where the worm never dies and the fire never goes out. And it reinforces it 3 times. So you get a graphic idea of what this thing called hell, Jesus is talking about. And it's pretty graphic stuff. And I remember a certain circumstance a few years ago, it made me laugh, so I'll tell you about it a little bit, it's quite funny. But there was a guy who talked about this quite often, this subject. And he was a Scottish gentleman, so if there's any Scots amongst you, I apologise now. But he would go and say things like, he'd come and he'd go, and he'd lean. You know, they just lean on, you know you're in trouble when people lean. And he'd go, hell is a reality. There will be a weeping and a grinding of teeth. And then there was a big silence, and there was one bright spark at the back of the congregation and said, what happens if you haven't got any teeth? Teeth will be provided. It's funny. But joking aside, There's a clear choice and a clear direction with Jesus of the consequences of life without him. And so this leads me a little bit into YCAP and YCAP Blackburn. YCAP and YCAP Blackburn. Because one of the things that we could do, and we've said this many, many times, we could do this from a call centre. We could actually do this from a call centre and cut loads of costs. But we don't, because face-to-face is very, very important. So why? So number one, so the church has a practical solution for the problems of debt and its causes of the people in their community. The church has a solution. And I think that's really important how the church is thought of in its community. Church is there for the benefit of the people that are not yet its members, as well as us. Number two, so it can connect and influence with other organizations, although they don't have the same driver as we do, but they still have the same heart of wanting to help people. But we can influence them in missionally as well as people directly. Number three, so that we can deliver practically Psalm 46 verse 1. And we've heard a little bits of the same sort of psalm in what we've heard this morning. And the psalm is, God is our refuge and strength, always ready to help in times of trouble. Now, for those scholars amongst you, I know that that's God to his people. I know that's for his people. But although this is about his people, the benefits that we can have and the benefits that we can share, we can take. So it's like being a fortress by proxy. For what sort of things? Worry, debt, sorrow, insecurity, loneliness, and all alike inhabit the people that God sends to them through us. In that reading, it says this: anyone who welcomes the little child, and let me talk about little children in that time, they were reviled. They were almost unseen. So that's exactly why Jesus took one and made an example of it, because nobody would have even seen them. So he made an example using the lowliest of the low to make a point. And also, which was really interesting as well, which caught my attention, it says, if anyone gives you even a cup of water because you belong to me. I've had lots of cups of water because of people that I've seen in the past have not had any tea bags. Now they receive a blessing just because they want to give you what they've got and share what they've got. I've had lots of humbling, I'm sure Sheila has, and lots of other centre managers that I work with, they've had humbling experiences to the people who've not got now, but they'll give you half of what they've got. It's a humbling experience, folks. It really is. Anyone who gives you a cup of water, that person will be surely rewarded. We want to give them an opportunity to be rewarded, so that's why we see them. Number 4, to be a signpost to the God of YCAP, being a signpost to him. A bit further in Mark 16, Jesus rose from the dead and he said this: go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creations. Whoever believes will be saved, if not, will be condemned. It's the same message as what we're seeing now. It's exact. So this is the message before he dies, and that's the message after he dies. So this is probably why he said, don't tell anybody about all this stuff until after we're dead, because he wants to say, go and tell people. Never be fearful of saying and sharing your faith to somebody. Do you know the biggest fear is? The biggest fear, and I've learned this over many years, the biggest fear of sharing your faith is that people might think you're nutters. Well, so what? So what? If we hear the graphic thing of what we're saved from this morning, so what? I want everybody to have the same benefits. It's the best thing I can give anybody. And that's YCAP. People have the free will to choose. That's God's greatest gift to us. We have the free will to choose, but it is up to us to deliver the package. We don't make Christians. God makes Christians. The Holy Spirit makes Christians. But we're good postmen. We deliver the package because God trusts us. He trusts us to do that. And I'll tell you this, there is nothing more joyous than seeing somebody grow from an acorn from when you said, let me just give you what my faith journey has been, and then it's up to you. It's a great thing. Number 5, have you ever heard this sentence? Well, serve them right. I've heard it many, many times. And believe me, I understand consequences of actions. The Bible talks about consequences a lot. We haven't got time to go into it today, but it talks about it a lot. I understand that. But I've also seen the example of the lady with the alabaster box, pours it all over Jesus. And he said this, whoever has been forgiven much loves much. And I have actually seen that. I've seen that. And number 6, in respect of me and Sheila and the team here, the volunteers and befrienders, and all CAP wide, the last verse in the reading was all about salt. And that relates to, we haven't got time to go into it, but it relates to a lot of stuff in Leviticus. It's part of Levitical law. And if you want to do some studying on that, please go and have a look. But to quickly sum up, it's about being preserved and then being a preservative. So being preserved and being a preservative. It's an opportunity to lose a bit of our life, to find it and benefit others. And it's as simple as that. And although it's CAP Sunday today, and thanks for giving us the time to speak, CAP don't have a monopoly on this stuff. It's not just for CAP. It's like that advert, isn't it? So is it puppy? Puppy isn't for life, not for Christmas. But it's a little bit like that. It's not just for CAP, it's for everybody, for your neighbours, your friends, your family, whatever. It's for all of that. The Bible in Galatians said this, and I'll finish with this. Let us not become weary in doing good. For at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. I just pray that God gives you a little bit of comfort from that, but also challenges you too in respect of the direction. Why Jesus? Why he saved us? And why CAP? Amen.